best book, I think, to give to someone that's interested in Islam or finding out about Islam is Dr. Abu Amin Bilal Phillips' book on the fundamentals of Tawheed, because in there he kind of, appeals to your fitrah. Your fitrah is that, there's only one God, He's a Lord, He's a Creator.
You mentioned about your son. I just wanted to ask you about that because, subhanAllah, a lot of people go through tests in life, and people have different trials. How was it coping with such a big trial, and any kind of advice for people who are, experiencing difficulty?
Isn't that on, right? But there's a lot of knowledge. But at the same time, there's also something else which has also happened as a result of, for example, social media. Is also, you've still got a lot of shouting loud and, basically what I call bringing the religion into disrepute by doing a lot of things on a public platform which should be dealt with privately, for example. So that's also there as well, and maybe, that needs to, be challenged. All of these type of things, they lack sincerity. Why? Because the Messenger said, "Adin al-nasiha," 3 times. Or the din nasiha is to Allah, to His Messenger, to the leaders of the Muslim, and to the general folk. Nasiha means to be sincere in what you're doing, to give good counsel, to you know what I mean? And that goes out the window the moment you're going to be public. Everything's going to be public. You start to question, people's sincerity gets questioned. Also as well, look at the fitna that's come as a result of it, all these scandals that are happening lately concerning specific du'at, or that have been, accusations that are being made publicly. So the counter response is everything becomes a public show, basically, which is very dangerous, because the religion is about, the religion is based upon establishing justice. It's based upon sincerity in your actions, hiding your good deeds. But the point is that to be successful doesn't mean you have to be a student of knowledge. You have to have the understanding of what's halal and haram. That's a must. You have to know Allah and worship Him. You have to know halal and haram. But success is achieved by the manager. It's achieved by the doctor, it's achieved by the dentist, it's achieved by the engineer, it's achieved by the Muslim postman, the Muslim bus driver, the Muslim, all of these people can be successful in their deen. It's not necessarily, and they can contribute something to Islam. And it doesn't have to be on the front line giving dawah either. It's just as an example, Islam is spread by your actions. Let's be real, it's not spread by what you say. What you say might turn people away, for whatever reason. But how they see you and how you present yourself and sticking to your promises, being reliable, being dependable, being trustworthy, being a person that's honest in his buying and selling. This is Islam. It's the application of the legislation, not just telling people the legislation.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, it's John Fontain. Just before we begin the podcast, please make sure you click subscribe and also set your notifications. And make sure you check out the earlier podcasts. We've up to around 40 podcasts so far. There's lots of podcasts there for you to benefit from. Make sure you check that out. Also, if you can go to the John Fontain YouTube channel as well, click subscribe, set your notifications, and also enjoy the other videos. There's a Fiqh of Love series, a series on Christianity, and other videos regarding dawah. Also, if you'd like to support the podcast by supporting us financially with the equipment and the travel costs and the running costs, not just of the podcast, but also the other dawah activities I'm involved in, please support on the Patreon account. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the Young Smirks podcast. I'm with a very special guest today, Sheikh Abdul Wahid Stephenson. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good, thank you very much.
No handshakes today. So
no handshakes today.
We have to.
We have to keep to the keeping safe.
Yeah, subhanallah. Sheikh, you're the dean of the Madinah College.
Yeah.
You're right here, mashallah, in the centre of Brixton.
Yeah.
I'm just really shocked, actually. I've heard about Madinah College for a long time, but I've never actually visited before.
Yeah.
And I know Brixton, and you're literally right in the heart of Brixton.
Yeah.
And you've got a big setup here. How did this come around? I mean, before we get onto that, can you just tell us a bit about yourself, because you've not always been a Muslim, right?
Yeah.
You found
Yeah.
Islam.
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, I converted to Islam when I was young, 18, 19, and I think, when I became Muslim, it was based upon a Tawheed, which is obviously belief in Allah. And one of the amazing things I always mention is that I still do it today, the best book I think to give to someone that's interested in Islam or finding out about Islam is Dr. Bilal Phillips' book on the fundamentals of Tawheed, because in there he kind of, appeals to your fitrah. Your fitrah is that, there's only one God, He's a Lord, He's a creator, so worship Him. And the other good thing I like about that book is that because Dr. Bilal Phillips, he's lived in the West, he kind of does a comparison as well. So he speaks about things which you can relate to. So for example, superstitious practices like touch wood for good luck and all that type of stuff. So I read that book. It was given to me by a friend of mine. Said, read this. I read that book, and after that I became Muslim.
SubhanAllah.
Almost straight away. So
a
lot of it. And why I said it's the irony of it is that, as you are aware, Dr. Bilal Phillips, he's a graduate of the Islamic University of Medina as well. So just to highlight, the impact that one person can have, as well. And he's also a convert as well. Yeah. Graduate of the university, authored loads of books, involved in educational establishments. And going back to your introduction, one of the motivations behind getting involved in dawah and education would be, Sheikh Bilal Phillips, because obviously he's got an education institutes,
it's interesting because obviously he converted to Islam, and that book was authored in English.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because of course a lot of books that people study were originally authored in Arabic.
Yeah.
And then they kind of translated. But being authored specifically for an English-speaking audience, I think it has a different effect.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%, definitely, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Dr. Bilal because it was actually one of his videos which kind of brought me to Islam.
Yeah. I
remember I'd witnessed some like magic and sihr in Africa when I travelled to Africa, and I came back and I spoke to. I've probably said this on the podcast like 10 times now, but I'm going to tell you but I basically. I came back and my Libyan friend said, no, this is like haram, it's shirk. Yeah. And he showed me a lecture by Dr. Bilal about how these magicians, do these kind of things. Yeah. And subhanAllah, so the effect of a Medina student, it's not just yourself, it's
exactly.
Something, So is that, you was very young when you accepted, you 16 was you?
No, I was about 18 when I became Muslim, towards the end of college. So after I became Muslim, I guess I was in touch with because of where I lived, there was Muslims on the estate, a Somali brother, a couple of converts as well, and they were from Brixton Mosque as well.
You're born and bred in Brixton?
No. I was born in Jamaica, but I grew up in the UK. So primary school, secondary school, everything was in the UK. So I got the other, I guess, important thing which really benefited me a lot is that the community I got introduced to was Brixton Masjid, and it was a community which was based upon knowledge. So it was based upon, for example, conferences with scholars coming over. It was based upon, for example, Quran and Sunnah. So this was really important as well. So it's kind of like, you aspire to be a student of knowledge, because of the virtues and stuff like that. So that was also important, I think.
Because I've seen you do a lot of translation when scholars come from different countries. You actually, I've seen you do some translation for them as well.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. So how was it, that journey how did you come to go to Medina?
Yeah, that was really interesting and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Actually, what happened was back then, this was obviously just before, I think, 9/11, and the Jama, they used to send kind of like, teachers or professors to hold intensive conferences in the UK, America and stuff like that. So there was a conference in Glasgow, a 2-week one. So I drove up there, stayed the night in the masjid for 2 weeks, met a bunch of good brothers, eating biryani every day, lunch and dinner. But at the end of the conference, the 2-week conference, so we were studying Arabic, Seerah, Tawheed, a bit of fiqh. And then at the end of the conference, I had the opportunity to apply for the Jama. So we all applied. myself, Muawiyah, Zulfikar, Abdullah from Manchester. I don't know if you know him. I think he's in, where is he now? He's based in, I think he's in UAE or somewhere, teaching. White brother, revert as well. I forgot, what's his... Anyway, all of us applied. We all applied. And I thought, because of how it went, it looked really positive. That same year I made Hajj. Went to the Islamic University of Medina, saw one of the professors that were there. He comes to me, he goes, I said, look, I've applied, I've been accepted, excited and everything. He goes, yeah, you're English, yeah? I said, yeah. He goes, you've been accepted. So I thought, okay, that's great. But then when the list of names came out, everyone was on there except for me. So for example, Zulfikar was on there, Muawiyah was on there, Abdullah was on there, loads of brothers were on there. So I thought, subhanAllah, what happened there? I didn't get accepted. I felt like a bit dejected and stuff. I applied again, they came back the following year. I applied again and I got accepted the year afterwards, alhamdulillah. And it worked out well because at that point I was still at university doing a degree in English.
MashaAllah.
So had I got accepted that year, I wouldn't have been able to complete my studies because I would have left, it would have been 2 years of English lit degree. Masalam, I'm going to Medina, because the objective was always to get to a Muslim country, even the degree
everyone
itself.
Got accepted.
Almost all, like all the brothers I didn't get accepted. So, alhamdulillah, it worked out well. I got to finish my degree, then I went to the university. And even going there was a bit of a kind of hesitation because at that time I also got a job offer, so I had an option in front of me. Either go over there, I'm married, I got, family, I got a child. I can either go over there as a student and be miskeen, as was the impression that's kind of like given, or I can be an English teacher and get paid loads of money, drive a jimps and be comfortable, do you get what I mean? So I started consulting some brothers that were over there, English teachers. I said, what do you think? He's like, to provide for your family is the best thing to do, come over as a... But I prayed istikhara, I decided, no, do you know what? I'm going to go and seek knowledge, I'm going to go to the Jamia. So I took that, made that decision, alhamdulillah, and it's been
it's quite a difficult decision to make, obviously, because being a student in Medina, I'm guessing even at that particular time, it was a lot harder than today even. And it's hard today. But like, financially, things like that. So it's quite a big choice to make.
Yeah, it's not easy, especially as a mature student as well. So at that point, I was like, I think that the cut-off time is 25. So I got there just when I was 25. Had a wife, a child, 2 kids, stuff like that. But yeah, alhamdulillah, it's a ni'mah and a barakah, definitely.
So coming back, I always ask the students, like, how did you kind of plan what you'll be doing after you finish your studies? Is it something you worked on after, or did you have a plan all along? Because obviously, you've established this Madinah College.
My plan was not to come back. My plan was to stay over there as an English teacher. I had a job offer, but alhamdulillah, things, you plan, Allah's the best of planners. So even you may want to do something and it looks all wonderful and amazing, but it doesn't happen. So I had to leave give up the job offer and come back to the UK. I had a son that was born. He was born with, lots of complications. He was born disabled. He needed 24-hour care. He needed regular hospital visits. He's since passed away. He passed away when he was 3 years old. But the point is, because of that, I had to, change what I planned to do. But then, alhamdulillah, one door closes, another one opens. And this is the reality. A person that puts their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they strive to do, to stay within the boundaries of Islam. Inshallah, one door closes, one door opens. And that's the case, all the time. Someone shouldn't think that, that was all, I've lost out on something. You haven't lost out on anything. What's happened is what's written for you is what's going to reach you. What's not written for you was never going to reach you anyway. So when I came back to the UK, 2008, before that time, I'd come back in the summer and I'd done a little course, Dawra, with some of the brothers in Croydon, and we opened up basically Croydon Mosque. So 2009, when I came back, I was straight into an imam's job, in a new masjid, which I was able to kind of develop with the chairman at the time, who was a good friend of mine, and a brother who was also, studied and had a bit of knowledge as well. So alhamdulillah, it worked out.
You mentioned about your son. I just wanted to ask you about that because, subhanAllah, a lot of people go through tests in life, and people have different trials. How was it coping with such a big trial, and any kind of advice for people who are, you know, experiencing difficulty?
Like, so obviously, alhamdulillah, my wife, she obviously, you know, she's the one that's putting a lot of support. She cared for him 24/7. She was, you know, really good at doing that, basically. So he had lots of complications. He had lots of issues, and they didn't expect him to live longer than a year anyway. You know, so yeah, but, you know, it's like you mentioned, it's a trial, it's a tribulation, and all of these things, these tests. One thing I do say to people, coming back a bit, sometimes it's about how you look at the situation. It's how you view the situation. So sometimes you have a perception of something, but your perception is skewed by your environment, your biases and your environment. So it looks like it's something which is bad for you. As Allah mentions, sometimes you might think something's bad for you, it's good for you. You think something good for you is bad for you, right? Okay, some things you may think are bad for you, in reality it's good for you. I'll give you an example. Okay, one of the Messenger of Allah mentioned a hadith about looking after orphans. They said that Anna, or the one that looks after orphans, are like these two, right? These two fingers. Okay, looking after an orphan means spending money from your pocket, which is, you know, it means, for example, feeding, clothing, having a roof over. It's a long-term thing, right? It's not just, for example, for a week, a day. It's for years until they grow up and they move out. So it's a long-term thing. But the reward connecting to it is equivalent to the amount of work you put in, but greater. You're going to be with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu in paradise, that close. Look how close. That's next to. You're going to be next to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, for example, having a disabled son or disabled child that you have to look after, that you have to raise, is 24-hour care. That 24-hour care, if you used to look at it properly, is 24-hour reward, an opportunity to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by caring for somebody else 24/7. So while you may think that it's something which is, okay, now I can't do this and I can't do that, no, it's the opposite. You've been given an opportunity. Here's a blessing right in front of you.
The door's open.
Yeah, the door's open for you, basically. So this is from the rahmah of Allah for that person, as opposed to it being a tribulation. Do you get what I mean? So it's a blessing because, you know, those 3 years that he was alive was, 3 years with him, and, having that time. So yeah, it's a blessing.
Very important, subhanAllah, having that different perspective. And it's like the story of Musa and Khidr. Not having the whole picture. You can kind of think, oh, this is a bad thing, but subhanAllah, lots of wisdoms and
exactly.
And I was thinking, I heard a statement recently. It really touched me. It was saying, why do we have like such big trials and things like that? Some of the wisdom behind it, that some of the rewards of paradise can only be opened by trials. By actually experiencing and passing, these tests. So it's
and even the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, which is well known, that paradise is surrounded by difficulties and trials, meaning that to get there you're going to have to go through some, and the meaning of taklif is a responsibility. In a way it's a burden of some sort. It's on your neck. The 5 salawat every day. It's on your neck until you perform them. So performing them is fulfilling that obligation, that responsibility, and that's taklif. You have to be responsible, and this is also, I guess, a way that us as Muslims, this is how we develop and contribute positively in society as well. There are people that take care of our responsibilities, we fulfill our commitments, our trusts, our promises, our contracts and stuff like that. That's really key to understand and to highlight.
Now, I know it's difficult for you to come back to London. It must have been very hard, leaving Medina, Saudi. But I feel that, subhanAllah, this is also one of the wisdoms as well, right? Because you might have not been able to see it at the time, but could you imagine that you would have, the dawah would have opened up for you like this? Having your own institution right in the middle of a place where you grew up?
Yeah, no, I mean, not at all. Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So you kind of, you do your bit, and inshallah you hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you tawfiq and gives you puts barakah in your efforts. But ultimately, everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you just always turn to Allah and keep doing. I think one of the important things is actually working towards something, having an objective, having a vision, working towards fulfilling it all the time. I think that's really key as well. So, having a plan. And also, I think what's also important is constantly educating yourself. So you have to keep developing. How do you keep developing? You keep studying, you keep reviewing, you keep reading. One of the things which was key for me, for example, is when I was an imam at Croydon ICT, I realised that only 15% was teaching of the time that was spent, and some of it was spent in meetings, some of it was spent, for example, dealing with the problems in the community, whether it's between husband and wife or between two brothers and stuff like that, marriage issues. And then I realised, okay, I've got the theory, the Islamic knowledge, I know the rulings of the, of divorce, of marriage, but there's another aspect which is needed, which is arbitration, mediation. So one of the things I said, okay, to be able to fulfill that job properly, if I'm going to be in that position to be doing that, I need to go and, study. So then I went and did a master's in arbitration and mediation, and so that I know that what I'm doing, I'm going to be having the right impact. Do you get what I mean? Positive contribution and stuff like that.
Having the wisdom behind not just the rulings or the...
Yeah, you need to try and apply it, contextualize it, and do the job properly. Yeah. So I think one of the important things, and I guess this is the case for any person that's in a position of leadership, is that, there's always more that you can learn, and there's always more that you can do, basically. Yeah. There's always more to do, there's always more to learn. So I think it's always about, keep on pushing yourself to do more. I think that's really key.
I think in this age of internet and social media, people just think they don't know about the people who are really working behind the scenes. We came here today, you've literally constantly been on the phone, every 5 minutes your phone's ringing, you're counselling people, you have your institution, what's it like having such a big responsibility in the community? Because they constantly kind of come to you for that support. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, you're involved in dawah, you've been doing it a long time. And I think what's evident and what's key is that it's not something that you do by yourself. So, there's always a team. Do you get what I mean? So, alhamdulillah, it's not about, me, it's about the team. So there's always, for example, number one, there's people that I consult, that's first and foremost. So for example, if there's issues, I'm going to be phoning up other graduates, we're going to discuss it. Or for example, if it's an issue, I might phone up a scholar to see what the ruling is, this is what's come up. So I'm not by myself. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? Also as well, there's brothers that support and assist, whether it's whatever project it is, whether it's a dawah to non-Muslims, then there's a team for working with that. Whether it's, for example, in the education here, doing the marketing and doing the media, doing the recording, doing the editing, we've got a team that's going to be helping out. So I think it's important to realise that, you even if it's not about you doing everything, it's about you empowering people and developing people. Yeah. And I think this is one thing which is key. It's about developing other people so that they can also have an impact. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, as an example, say we've got a class and we've got 25 students. Okay, I'm looking for the student that's going to become a teacher, that's going to be able to go that step further and now actually have an impact on other people, going to be able to pass on that knowledge. Whether they pass it on here or go somewhere else and pass it on, the point is that they need to be able to, that's where the value lies, isn't it? Because that's where the increased reward lies, that's where the sadaqah jariyah lies, knowledge which continues after, and that's what we want to do. And when I say teach other people, I mean teach them, develop them. I don't mean, for example, just do a lecture here, do a lecture there. No, I mean actually develop people to also become, balanced Muslims that understand the religion, apply it properly, stuff like that.
I think you've took a step further, rather than just having lectures, weekly lectures in the masjid, where people just come and casually kind of listen, sometimes they won't attend. You have a structured program. Yeah. Tell us a bit about your, the actual program that you deliver here at the Madinah College.
Okay, so alhamdulillah, when Madinah College, the purpose behind even the college is exactly like you said, to set up a structured program that's going to allow students over the space of 3 years, 4 years to become grounded in knowledge. And grounded meaning that they have the basics that they're able to go on and now also convey that knowledge to other people in a structured manner. You know, because obviously, you know, given there's a lot of people can go on YouTube and you know, read a book and start shouting or giving dawah, becoming a da'i. But as for actually learning, sitting down, it's something that's a lifelong journey. It's something you sit down, you actually have to study, you have to memorize, you have to, contextualize the knowledge that you've got in your society. You have to have wisdom, you have to apply it. You have to have mentors, you have to have teachers that you can. So it's about creating the kind of a syllabus that allows for holistic development. And that starts from the basics. Obviously the Arabic language, memorizing Quran, studying an introduction to all of the sciences. So one of the main courses we have is like a diploma course where you do, for example, all of the sciences as well as the Arabic language and memorizing Quran. Then you step up and go, for example, to a course where you're studying with the scholars, where you're studying, for example, actual mutun. We've already built up a good foundation knowledge before you go to that level as well anyway. You know, and then after that it's about, transferring that knowledge into teaching. You know, so you take small groups and you teach. So it's developing holistically.
So you basically training them also to teach as well. So they have the knowledge, but they have the knowledge, but also as well, if they're able to, they have that desire, that passion, then to teach as well. If they don't have the desire to passion, it's just to have that knowledge, so you remove ignorance from yourself primarily. You know. But I think the other thing that's important to highlight is that it's not just, for example, a kind of like let's say a cold learning environment. No. It's an engaged learning environment. So you come, for example, and it's a community. It's a community of students that want to become scholars, that want to understand their religion, that want to, for example, implement it, apply it, that want to, for example, represent Islam in the way that it's supposed to be represented. So it's also community engagement as well, which is, I think, because the thing is, okay, you have a college, you have a building, but it doesn't exist without the people that are in there, without the team that are, representing it. So I think that's what's key to. I think even the structure of your setup, you have like a common room, if you like a cafe sort of thing. You have a library. It's not just like classrooms. It's a lot more interactive. You're seeing that there is a community. You get that feeling when you come in. And you're literally right in the centre. Right in the centre. It's hustle and bustle. It's busy. Feel like you're literally sat in the middle of Brixton. On that point, just to highlight the coffee house, it's even how it is now, for example. This is something which was a project that we gave to some of the students that were here, some of the female students. So it's called Madinah College Coffee House, but it's run by a group of sisters, that were students and volunteers that they set it up. They had a budget, they fixed it up. They come and they volunteer and they work here, and they're the ones that are actually running it as well. So again, it's not just about, it's about, as you know, the deen is comprehensive. The deen is comprehensive, and it's not everyone is a student of knowledge. You have people that are students of knowledge. You have people that are, for example, involved in businesses. You have people that are involved in, for example, every field that you can think of. Right. So you want to develop people to become leaders in whatever it is that they're doing. So this is one of the things that we did. We facilitated for sisters to open up a coffee house. They run it, and so this is actually more a sister's space than it is a brother's space, although we're here filming now. Alhamdulillah. We live in, obviously, the age of internet, social media. There's a lot of courses out there. Everyone seems to be making courses these days. And what separates your college from everyone else? I know that's a big question, but I want to see what you say about it. I guess there's two things. The first thing is that we're a physical college, and it being a physical college, also we're focused on developing we want to maintain a standard of education which is equivalent to higher education in the UK. So, for example, graduates education. And to do that, what we do is two things. Ensure, for example, that we have regular intensive seminars with
professors and mashaykh from the Islamic universities around the world, whether it's in Kuwait or whether it's in Medina or Qasim. And they're doctors, they're you know, if we was going to say, for example, comparatively, they're mashaykh, they're scholars, but they're also professors, they're also asatidha, you know, in their field, they're specialists, basically. You know, so that's one thing that separates us. So we want to have an academic standard, a high standard. That's one thing. The other thing I think which is key to highlight is that we want it to be, it's not about, you know, it's about actual impact. It's not just about, for example, you know, here's a course, jump on, jump off. No, it's
what
about
are you going to do with that knowledge?
what you can do with that knowledge. It's about continued development. It's about keeping in touch. It's about building that community of students that go on and continue to have an impact. So it's development. We want it to be holistic. So as an example, you know, you have. So for example, we have some of the young brothers now that are part of the team here. They also are going to be applying for the Islamic University of Medina. Okay, so we assist and we facilitate. Okay, if you want to go to Islam, let's try to get you a tazkiyah from the scholars that come here that already know the college. Okay, they go, they get accepted. Okay, what do they do when they come back in the summer? We want to provide a space where they're able to do research as well as teach, you know, as well as look at contextualizing Islam in the UK for Muslims that are living in the UK with regards to the challenges they face, whether it's stuff to do with student loans, whether it's stuff to do, for example, working in different environments, i.e. being able to contextualize Islam. Okay, if they graduate, what are they going to do when they come back? This is a question you asked, isn't it? And it's a question that this is a concern of every student, big concern. I remember when I was over there and I'm like, okay, now I am going back, what am I going to do? You know, and it's a question that students always ask. Last time I was in Saudi, you know, I met some students that were there, what am I going to do when I go back? You know,
so you kind of help them shape their vision.
So what we're trying to do is, okay, so when you come back, okay, here's a place where you can teach, you know, do courses which is based upon what you've learned, but not just do courses and teach, because you can do that in masajid as well. Also develop, okay, what do you want to do with regards to your own further studies, education-wise? Do you want to go into Islamic finance? Okay, let's facilitate that. Do you want to go into, for example, looking at Sharia council stuff? Okay, let's have a look at that, research. You know, so encourage them to keep developing, basically. You know, also, I think the important thing as well is to keep a connection with knowledge and students of knowledge and scholars. So what you will blend in that traditional with the academic and to develop it further, basically. Do you get what I mean?
SubhanAllah. So you make sure you have that connection back to, you know, scholars. You know, you have contact with them, so you can, you know, make sure you
so keep a connection with
keeping
scholars,
that Islamic process,
keep a connection with the actual students amongst themselves, for example, and just look at more areas where we can develop and have an impact. So just as an example, one of the projects that we're working on is like a research forum for students, so they can get involved in academia, so challenge some of the current you know, so for example, you know, there's a lot of papers which are published in journals, different topics. Okay, the students that are graduates of Islamic University, they have more tools to access the Arabic language, the original sources, than a lot of the academics have, because they are reading in English, for example. You know, okay, so let's start doing some research. Let's look at what's being published. Let's, you know, question it, challenge it. You know, let's publish stuff ourselves. You know, as a, you know, and make that, you know, connect that bridge between the traditional and the academic, for example, without having to, for want of a better word, liberalize the traditional. You know, you can maintain the traditional and it's academic because it's already knowledge-based. Islam has always been knowledge-based. It's always been about evidence. It's always been about scientific, you know, it's always been that anyway. You know, to the point that, you know, a lot of that is taken from Muslims in the first place. So it's not a case of having to liberalize it not a case of having to liberalize it, it's a case of having to, you know, make that connect, build that bridge, basically. So this is with other students, other professors. For example, in Scotland, there's other brothers that are graduates of the Islamic University of Medina. They did their PhD. You know, we're going to be, you know, looking at doing some stuff like that.
Do you think that other Islamic universities around the world are actually lacking this? Because I feel that, you know, you get this a lot with students of knowledge, that they're not prepared once they've graduated. It's kind of like, you know, you get the theory, you get the knowledge, but they're not kind of the practical side of it. Do you feel there's a gap there?
Yeah, no, I think the gap. Okay, so where the gap is they get a lot of knowledge, but then you come back to the UK and you realise, hold on a minute, a lot of that stuff is like, it's that high up compared to the everyday scenarios. So a student of knowledge from the Islamic University of Medina, he's done 6 years in studying. It's not a small thing. He studied a lot. He's reached a fairly high level in his knowledge, which needs to be, first of all, recognised. That's the first thing. It needs to be recognised that 6 years in the Islamic University of Medina is not, you don't come out of there and you're an army, you don't know anything. No, you've got quite a high level of knowledge. But the problem comes in trying to convey that to someone which is still kind of like, in terms of he's able to understand the terminology, the Arabic, the differences of opinion. He doesn't, do you know what I mean? So there's that gap that takes time to kind of readjust to. You know, I remember there was a funny conversation when one of the brothers came back and he was given a lecture and he's quoting all these sources and these references and these books, and you know, he's mentioning all the references and the sources, but the problem is it's going over everyone's head, because they're still at a very low level. But he thinks like, this is, he's showing his knowledge type of thing, and it's true. It is. He's not showing off, but he doesn't realise he needs to basically what we call grade the language to the people. So there's that problem. I guess the second problem as well is that there's other skills that they need. So, for example, research skills, which they may not have focused on in the Jamia, for example, how to write papers, for example. Or like I mentioned, counselling skills, mediation skills. These are other things that
are very important, especially if you're going to be in the community.
Exactly. So basically, if you look at it like this, in the masjid, it's not like in the Middle East where the masjid is for lessons and prayer. The masjid over here is for counselling, it's for lessons, they're stretched. It's for prayer, it's for courses, it's for everything basically. So so it's like that's one of the other issues as well, perhaps.
I wanted to ask you, because obviously this is your area, Brixton. How has things changed since you became a Muslim up until today? How have you seen like Islam change and go through different stages in this like area?
I think what's obviously, I was young, the people in the community were young at the time, so there's that maturing that's happened, which happens over time anyway, which is good. Okay, with that comes the fact that there's also, I think, a lot more students, people are more knowledgeable, they have more understanding of the religion, as well as of the nuances of living in and applying it in the UK. This is a result of a number of factors. The events that have happened, obviously, having to deal with stuff like Islamophobia, for example, having to deal with, for example, the Prevent agenda, having to deal with, negotiating and navigating all of these events has also had an impact on that. So I think that, at the moment, there's a lot of qualified, let's say, for example, students of knowledge. I won't say mashayikh or scholars, although they are scholars in their own right. If you're going to do comparatively, they are definitely scholars in their own right. But there's a lot of knowledge. But at the same time, there's also something else which has also happened as a result of, for example, social media. Is also, you've still got a lot of shouting loud and basically what I call bringing the religion into disrepute by doing a lot of things on a public platform which should be dealt with privately, for example. So that's also there as well, and maybe, that needs to, be challenged, that needs to be questioned.
What advice would you give to, people who are online, who are, maybe shouting or maybe presenting Islam in not kind of with the correct adab, like manners, there's a certain type of manners we should have, right?
Of course, 100%.
We're representing Islam. What advice, and also young students, about where to seek knowledge and who to seek knowledge from? As I said, there's so many things out there, there's videos, there's courses available.
Yeah.
You know, you have people watching videos on philosophy, you know, getting confused. You know, it's not for them. You know, you're having people studying with certain people who have not studied themselves.
Yeah.
You know, what advice kind of would you give to for this?
Okay, so for the first part of the question with regards to people shouting on social media, the first thing is ikhlas. Social media, for example, a lot of it is based upon likes, is based upon, you know, you find, for example, videos which are, I forgot what they're called, where you comment on someone else's video, reaction videos. All of these type of things, they lack sincerity. Why? Because the Messenger said, "Adin al-nasiha," 3 times. Okay, or the din nasiha is to who? To Allah, to His Messenger, to the leaders of the Muslim, and to the general folk. Nasiha means to be sincere in what you're doing, to give good counsel, to you know what I mean? And that goes out the window the moment you're going to be public. Everything's going to be public. You know, you start to question, you know, people's sincerity gets questioned. Also as well, look at the fitna that's come up as a result of it, all these scandals that are happening lately concerning specific du'at, or that have been, you know, accusations that are being made publicly. So the counter response is everything becomes a public show, basically, which is very dangerous, because the religion is about, the religion is based upon establishing justice. It's based upon sincerity in your actions, hiding your good deeds, and stuff like that. So that's the first thing with regards to is ikhlas. A person needs to check his ikhlas, check his sincerity when he's showboating, or if he's acting up on, on YouTube or whatever it is. Is this? And the second thing is, ask yourself: is this how you imagine the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba behaved? Is this how the Imam of the Arba that you're saying that you're our scholars, our examples? Is this how they really? Can you imagine yourself? Can you imagine them behaving like that? Do you get what I mean? Can you picture your Imam Malik behaving like that on? Do you get what I mean? It's become a show, it's some of it's part of our times, but some of it's not justifiable. Do you get what I mean? There's no mitigating.
It's not needed.
It's not needed. The religion is a religion. Allah's going to preserve it. It's going to pass down generation to generation as it has done from then up until Allah decides.
It's like, I think sometimes it's like not understanding that our job is to convey, not convince, not even persuade even. It's to convey the message, make sure that they understand. But it's almost like we're trying everything we can to get people to engage, and it's like we're doing something that's not required from us. Simply just give the message, educate the people, and it's up to them.
So a lot of it comes across as fake. I'm not questioning someone's intention, but a lot of it looks fake.
Across as fake,
No, inshallah. I don't see you acting on.
I try to stick to my, I have a basic dawah, I don't, so I hope you're not refuting me live.
No, it's like you said. Alhamdulillah, it's like you said, our job is to convey, and as for changing the hearts, Allah's the one that changes the hearts, it's not us. As long as you convey, and you convey it how it's meant to be conveyed, and that's important. The second aspect, I think, is with regards to who do you take knowledge from. Then generally speaking, it's a straightforward principle across the board. Everyone knows it, everyone should apply it, which is ask yourself, the person that's teaching you, what's his qualifications? I don't mean what shahada has he got. I don't necessarily mean what shahada has he got. I mean, what's his qualifications for him to be teaching Islam? Of all subjects you're going to be telling them that this is halal and this is haram is the biggest subject you can do. Why? Because you're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated this thing for you, and Allah has made this thing haram, which is why it's i'lam al-muqa'in from Ibn Qayyim, the book says, sign in, i'lam al-muqa'in, it says sign in, the people that sign sign on who? An Rabbil Alameen. They're signing on Allah saying that this is halal, this is haram. It's not a small thing, it's a massive thing. So the question is, that person that's doing that, what qualifications or what gives you the right to do that, basically? What I mean by that is, the scholars in the past, they used to avoid saying haram, they used to say makruh, because they didn't want to use that word because it was so heavy. Today, you find somebody that's, for example, hasn't studied much, he's self-taught for most of the part, he hasn't got mashaykh, there's no tradition of learning. There's no tradition of learning. He hasn't taken it from a sheikh who's took it from a sheikh who took it from a sheikh. There's no isnad. On top of that, he's weak in most of the sciences, let alone in one science he's strong. He's weak in most of the sciences. So, for example, I've studied a bit of one science, but hasn't studied usul al-fiqh, hasn't studied other thing. And then he's speaking. Do you know what I mean? So it's speaking about a lot of our knowledge is from the major sins, as you know. You know. So I guess the other question you'd ask yourself is, what qualifications has that person got to be saying this is halal and this is haram? And that's the premise. That's the first one. You know, like you wouldn't go to a mechanic to do heart surgery. You wouldn't go to a plumber to fix your car. You're not going to the biggest, the best doctor, the doctor of your soul, the one that's going to help you purify your soul of sins, help you do that was pleasing to Allah. You're not going to go to as one brother mentioned, a charlatan, someone that claims knowledge, but in reality he hasn't got what he's claiming. You know, this is an important thing. You know, and the scholars in their books of usul al-fiqh, they mention, for example, who's qualified to give fatwa, what the requirements are. They mention, for example, you know, what's the preconditions for that and stuff like that, and that's in the books. There's a book I translated which is on this topic called Usul al-Fiqh for Every Muslim, and what it focuses on is, okay, who do I ask fatwa for? Who do I go to for knowledge? If two muftis differ, what view do I take, for example? It's a book which was authored by Sheikh al-Shithri, and it's inshallah valuable on this topic. Inshallah.
Great advice, Sheikh. I think it's very relevant for the time as well. I think, you know, things have changed very fast online, and you know, we really need to, you know, people who want to seek knowledge, they have to really be careful. You know, it's not just, you know, it's good advice. So back to Madinah College, you offer also online classes as well. So if somebody wants to study with you online, is it literally just sign in, or do they have access to you? Do they have access to your team and your teachers?
Yeah, so we've got an online portal where we have all of our online courses on there. So you sign up, you subscribe, and then you have access to all the courses. But also as well, we do have our actual online courses where you have access to the teacher through, for example, whether it's on Zoom platform or another platform like that. So we have those online courses as well. So basically what we have the structured program, which is like a 2-year, 3-year program at the college, and then that's continually evolving. We're continually improving it, adding new courses, developing it, making it longer, adding another year on top of it. And then we have the portal for students that can't come to the college. So we have an online where you can study, for example, all of the courses that have been recorded and courses which are recorded specifically for online as well. You know, so we have courses on almost all the topics.
Sheikh, we need one of these centres in every major city in UK, Sheikh.
Inshallah, that's the plan.
Seriously, like we would love something like this in Manchester. You know, this would be fantastic.
Inshallah.
And if we could also, you know, I'm just imagining in Manchester. You know, I've always envisioned like a dawah centre. You know, even like this cafe you have here. This is like, even just from a dawah perspective, you know, allowing some non-Muslims to come have coffee. You can, you know, speak to them. As well as it's attached to an actual college. I'm just really impressed, and you know, alhamdulillah.
Inshallah, hopefully
I'm very happy for you and happy for the Muslims.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah you can help us set up in Manchester.
Inshallah. As I said, you know, it's something I really wanted to do from a dawah side, not obviously a college side, but I've never thought of this. I've never thought of like, I just like the whole setup, you know, and I encourage everyone to go and check out Madinah College and benefit. You know, it's.
I mean, I have been speaking with Naveed, as you know, Brother Naveed, a graduate of the Jamia as well. Very active, a lot of translations, a lot of actual courses. You know, working Madinah, everything. He's really active. So inshallah, it's something that we've discussed doing, and it was planned to launch in September, but COVID it may delay it. But inshallah, by January we're going to have something inshallah up north. Inshallah, and hopefully after that just expand it more.
Inshallah. Do you any ideas? Manchester maybe, or?
Nelson or Manchester?
I think Manchester.
Manchester would be,
You know, Even, I mean, at the moment we have Fontain as well. They have a lot of classrooms. I know if you want to do full time, it get in the way of their structure as well. But you know, maybe it'd be good. I mean, I would love to see. People being able to actually, I would love something like this, when even now, like, subhanAllah, it'd be amazing to be able to, you know.
Inshallah, hopefully we'll come and join you over in Uganda.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you, off camera later, inshallah, I want to discuss with you what I'm doing in Africa as well. Yeah. And may Allah bless you and you know, grant you the rewards for all what you've done.
Thank you very much.
Sheikh, is there any other final things you wanted to comment on or speak about or mention before we leave?
No, just the importance of knowledge, and that knowledge has an objective, which is actions, and that, you know, when it comes to giving knowledge or teaching or giving advice, you have to have hikmah, you have to have wisdom. You're dealing with Muslims in the UK. They're on a daily basis, they're facing temptations, shahawat, and they're facing shubahat. So it's not, you know, surprising if they're going to slip, they're going to trip up. You're not there to trip them up or to kick them further down. You're there to take their hand and pick them up. So when you're giving advice, you're telling people, you know, wear your hijab, or when you're giving advice to brothers or sisters, giving advice to sisters, they need to do it in a way which is going to bring the objective, which is the person comes back from the misguidance that they're upon, leaves this enough. So it has to be with wisdom, and it has to be with rifq as well. The Messenger of Allah was a person that wasn't shattam, he wasn't a person that curses. Do you see what I'm saying? Today a lot of social media, it's about exposing someone else or about chopping someone else down. That's not the methodology of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when it comes to giving dawah. So there has to be wisdom, you know, private advice also as well, even if it is public by, you know, the way you, like you said, the adab that you have when you're speaking to people. It has to, you know, because if they don't listen, you haven't harmed Islam by your representation, by your bad manners.
And you know, these manners, they can be understood by every culture. It's not just Islam. It's something like the fitrah recognizes manners. It really does, you know. Exactly, and it's not like you can't say like you're speaking a certain way or acting a certain way to bring people, when the fitrah is the manners of Islam.
Exactly,
right? How we talk. You know,
and the heaviest thing on Yawm al-Qiyamah is going to be husn al-khuluq, good manners. You know, the Messenger of Allah said, "Ana bu'ithu li mutim makarim al-akhlaq." I was sent to perfect manners. Do you see what I mean? So the point is you know, if a person wants to,
regarding you know, was it one of the scholars when he mentioned about before seeking knowledge he learned the manners.
They used to learn, exactly. They used to learn, before they sought knowledge, they used to learn from the Sheikh of his manners and his adab and his etiquettes and stuff like that.
And it's also the etiquettes of with your Sheikh as well. You know, you're speaking and it's not your time. You know, I mentioned on a previous podcast, you know, my Sheikh in Kuwait, he's around 45 years old, right? If he came to UK, mashallah, it'd be a big Sheikh, you know, mashallah, would benefit from it. But he's in Kuwait, obviously. Kuwait, they have many scholars, you know. It's not his time. You know, I ask him a question, he's like, "Oh, that's the Sheikh." I'm like, "Sheikh, just tell me the answer." He's like, "No, you know, there's an adab, there's a process."
Right. 100%.
And Sheikh, one last thing, you know, as I said, not everyone's aim is to be a student of knowledge, you know, but they want to study and have the basics. And can everyone do something for Allah and work for Allah? You know, not necessarily a teacher, not necessarily a sheikh, but, you know, everyone has a place and something to give, right? 100%.
So it's not, being a student of knowledge, number one, it's not necessarily the easiest path either. Do you see what I mean? It's not. It's difficult, basically. You know, like we spoke about, going away for 6 years, staying away from your family. You know, being in a dormitory. You know, it's not easy. Many people don't do it; they leave it. But the point is that to be successful doesn't mean you have to be a student of knowledge. You have to have the understanding of what's halal and haram. That's a must. You have to know Allah and worship Him. You have to know halal and haram. But success is achieved by the manager. It's achieved by the doctor, it's achieved by the dentist, it's achieved by the engineer, it's achieved by the Muslim postman, the Muslim bus driver, the Muslim, you know, all of these people can be successful in their deen. It's not necessarily, and they can contribute something to Islam. And it doesn't have to be on the front line giving dawah either. You know, it's just as an example, Islam is spread by your actions. Let's be real, it's not spread by what you say. What you say might turn people away, you know, for whatever reason. But how they see you and how you present yourself and sticking to your promises, being reliable, being dependable, being trustworthy, being a person that's honest in his buying and selling. This is Islam. It's the application of the legislation, not just telling people the legislation. Yeah. So everyone that in their own sphere, they are, a person that knows Tawheed and worships Allah, sticks within the boundaries of Islam to the best of their ability, does what they can do, and has good character, let's say, then he represents, for example, Islam in a positive way. Inshallah, he's given dawah, and he's going to have an impact, maybe more than someone that's shouting, perhaps, you don't know.
I went to a dawah center in Dubai, and it was actually originally set up by Dr. Bilal originally, subhanAllah. And when I visited, they said, oh yeah, we have like maybe 500 shahadas a month. And I'm like, okay, I've heard that before. You know, how many times have you heard that, right? Yeah. Anyway, I was there, and I'm not joking, right? And I'm no problems with the Dawah Center. It's not through their effort, actually, right? But people were walking in every single day wanting to be a Muslim. Yeah. So I'm thinking, what is it about Dubai, right? You know what it was? Everyone I asked, because in Dubai, Muslims are working with non-Muslims. Yeah. So you've got simple workers from places like India, Bangladesh, or wherever. Yeah. And they said, there's a brother at work, he prays, and then we work. And it's basic manners. Yeah. What was literally bringing people to Islam, like coming into contact with Muslims who are practicing the religion. Yeah. You know them, subhanAllah, them uncles who, mashallah, they have good manners. Yeah. They're just very simple, practicing, doing everything with ihsan, know, and that's what works.
And that's Islam.
Don't get me wrong, the Dawah Center, mashallah, they're doing good work, but literally, so many people coming to Islam because of this. Yeah. And that's how effective it is. So, as you said, we have to, actually implement what we're learning, and embody that.
That's right, embody the message. I mean, I think, I guess another key point, especially for the UK, for example, bearing in mind the environment and stuff like that, is the hadith of the Messenger of Allah, yassiru wa la ta'assiru. Make things easy for people, don't make things difficult. Obviously make things easy, meaning within the boundaries of Islam. But don't put hardship where there's ease, Understand the principles. Al-mashaqqa tajribu taysir. In there's difficulty, taysir is always an option. Ad-darura tubihu al-mahdhurat. Necessity permits things which are impermissible. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So Islam didn't come to make it difficult for you to live life. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So I think having that understanding that Islam came to make things easy, not make things difficult. That the prayers are not difficult. Living Islam is not difficult no matter where you are. Even in the UK, you can live Islam without it being a hardship on you, because the principles are there. When there's a difficulty, ease is applied. When there's necessity, something which is haram might become permissible. Principles are there. You see what I mean? The only thing, what's key though is that a person that's needs to know an answer, he goes to the right person. If he goes to the wrong person, it'll be like, hold on a minute, I can't do that, I can't do that, and he's just going to walk away from it, right? But if he goes to the right person, a person that understands the religion, has a foundation, has connection with other students of knowledge, with scholars, he's going to be able to give him an answer that's going to facilitate for him, live in Islam properly in the UK.
And be forgiving and gentle with the people, understand they're coming from different backgrounds. Yeah, at different stages in their life, different levels of iman. You don't know their circumstances that they're coming from. Another benefit. And there's a time and a place for advising about certain maybe things that they're doing that are haram. Yeah. There's a time and a place for advising on them particular issues. I recently had a conversation with a brother who recently, mashallah, started coming back to the deen. And he was involved in extremely bad things. Yeah. Things you can't imagine. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Even I know you understand the life, but things you can't imagine, right? And he's doing lesser things which are still haram. And I was just like, I'm not even going to mention that. If he's coming away from that to do that, I'm happy. It's like you kind of have to understand
his journey, the journey that he's on, his position, where he's coming from, and the point is you can, and also it's important to recognise you can see someone making the effort, because they're moving in a direction. towards piety. Do you get what I mean? Like the world famous hadith of the man that killed 99 people. He wanted to make tawbah. So he's moving in that direction. Don't cut it off from him by closing doors to things. Do you see what I mean? Leave him moving, but now take his hand and kind of guide him and direct him and help him more. Do you get what I mean? Because that person wants good. You know, if he wants good, inshallah, Allah is going to facilitate him, but it takes time. You know, it's a journey.
SubhanAllah, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feekum.
I've got a lot of benefit, and I'm very happy to meet you.
You too.
And I hope we can
Pleasure.
stay in touch. And I'd really like to stay in touch. Inshallah.
Definitely.
Jazakallah khair.
Barakallahu feekum.
Assalamu alaikum
Shukran.
wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء